everyone, so today I am going to be planting up these 2 strawberry plants into this container here. And strawberry plants are actually a perfect plant for container gardening because they are adaptable to a ton of different containers. You can get away with something as small as like a 6 to 8 inch container, put them in incredibly large containers. They actually even work really well in hanging baskets and window boxes. So I would say they're one of the probably easiest plants that you can grow in containers. Now, the type of strawberry plant that I'm going to plant today is an everbearing type, and that basically means that it's going to produce a few different yields throughout the year. Typically it'll have 2 to 3, maybe 1 in spring, 1 in summer, and 1 in fall. And the container I'm using is this galvanized tub. I don't know about you, but for me, a galvanized tub just seems like the perfect container for strawberries. And I've already gone ahead and drilled some holes here in the bottom, you can see. So I'm going to talk you through how to plant up your strawberries. Go ahead and do that with you, and then I'll go through some tips in terms of just maintenance for your container strawberries. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're growing strawberries in containers is figure out the container type you're going to use. Like I mentioned, they're pretty adaptable to almost any container type, so they don't have a very deep root system, but something that's shallow but wide works really well, so you don't have to look for something that's particularly deep to grow your strawberries. You also want to make sure, like I said, there is good drainage, so if there aren't already holes in your container, you'll have to add them yourself. And the next thing you want to do is fill it with soil, obviously. Now, again, I know I've mentioned this before, but you don't want soil that's just from your yard because that's going to be too dense for containers. You want to make sure you're choosing a soil that is made specifically for pots. And then I'm also going to add in an inch-thick layer of organic compost that I got at a local garden center. So I'm going to go ahead and pot this up right now. So the soil I'm using today is Miracle-Gro. That's the brand that I have on hand, and it was too heavy for me to lift the bag, but I moved this on the ground and filled it up. So soil is in. Next we're going to add compost and then get the plants into the pot. The 2 strawberry plants have now been planted in the container. You want to make sure that when you are planting them that you have the crown of the strawberry plant just above soil level here. So that's what I've done. You also want to make sure that the soil is pressed firmly around each plant. Once I water it in, if I see that there's any kind of pockets that need to be added with more soil, then I'll fill that in there. Now, in terms of spacing, so when you're growing in containers, you can actually get away with spacing them a little bit closer together than you would in the ground. So here I have the 2 plants, 1 on each side of the container. They're probably, I would say, about 10 to 12 inches apart. I wouldn't put anything else in this container. I think 2 plants is going to be perfect for the size tub that I have. The reason that I planted them on each side instead of just 1 in the middle is that it's beneficial for the strawberries to be able to dangle over the side of the container that they're in, and that's for a few reasons. So first, it makes for healthier berries. It's going to be better for the berries if they're ripening while hanging over the edge than sitting on the soil. That way they're not going to rot, and there's also, some sort of protection between them and the insects that might be in the soil. So anytime I plant strawberries, I do like to find some sort of way to make them hang over the edge of the container. Now, some will obviously grow towards the middle of the plants, so I'm also going to add in a layer of mulch after I water it in and make sure I don't need to add any additional soil, again just to give it a little bit of barrier from the potting soil itself. So I'm going to water it in, we'll add some mulch, and then we'll talk a little bit more about overall maintenance for the strawberry plants. Alright, so she is all potted up, and now I want to go over some maintenance tips for your strawberries. First thing is going to be sunlight. So like most other fruits and vegetables, strawberries like full sun. Again, that means 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. I'll show you where in my garden I end up placing this, but it's definitely going to be in one of the sunnier locations. Second is water. So we've already given her a good soak now that she's planted. They do like to be moist but not soggy. So again, that's why good drainage is going to be really important. I was debating whether to put 3, 4, or 5 drainage holes in here. I ended up with 5 because I figured the more the better, since this container type is not very porous and does tend to hold a little bit more water. So for the watering itself, I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to hook this up to the drip system or not. I like to wait until I know kind of the permanent place for my plants before I hook them into the drip system. But if you can do that, that's going to be the best way, just so they get consistent water. But whether you're doing watering through some automated process or manually, you want to make sure you're watering and avoiding getting the leaves wet. Again, just to avoid any sort of diseases that might come with the moist leaves. And then last is fertilization. So you want to typically fertilize your strawberries twice a year. Since I am just planting this up right now, it's the beginning of July, and I did add compost. I'm probably not going to fertilize it at any other point this year. And then starting next year, I'll get into the task of fertilizing it twice a year. Finally, the thing I want to mention last is runners. So if you aren't familiar with strawberry plants, they will put out runners, which are essentially parts of this plant sending out shoots to try to produce more plants. Now, since they're in this container here, all I'm going to do is just snip them off. I have seen people snip them off in containers and then put them into another pot or put another pot close by, but I don't have a ton of room, so I don't need a ton of strawberry plants. We're only a family of 2 anyway. So any runners that I see, I'm going to snip them off, because that's going to help put more energy back into the main plants instead of wasting any energy sending off runners. I have also heard that if you're just doing your strawberries for the first year, it's best to pick off these flowers. But these, I did get them this year, but they're already pretty large plants, so they're not very tiny seedlings. I'm going to let the flowers stay on, see how the yield does, but I should expect probably even better yield from these plants next year. So that is everything in terms of how to plant your strawberries in containers, the container types, and then maintenance for your strawberry plants. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one, but before we go, I'll show you where I end up placing this in the garden. This is where she is right now, but I don't think this is going to be her permanent location. But because it's the afternoon right now when I potted her up, that side of the deck gets the morning sun. This side of the deck gets the afternoon sun, so I want her to get as much sun as possible today, and then probably tomorrow I'll figure out where I want her. But I don't know if any of you who have container decks do the same thing. I feel like every day I just come out, move stuff around, make a mess, and then I have to clean it all up at the end of the day and basically repeat it the next day. But that is everything. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.